Great to be here.
Hi, I'm Jason. I'm the founder of Folius. We are a relatively speaking younger firm. We've only been around for a year. We are dedicated to invest in APAC founders, both in the region as well as outside of the region, mostly focusing on applications on the very top, as well as infra and SaaS tooling at the very bottom. For apps specifically, we've led the investment in Stefan, which supported companies. Very nice to be here as well.
Great, thank you. So as you can see, our panelists have got an extensive experience in the crypto space, and we're here to talk about what's going on in the markets. So to start things off, obviously we've had a very interesting year so far, to say the least. I think the last time I had so much fun was back in 2018. Just curious to hear from all of you. Obviously markets are pretty ugly globally, not just in crypto, but obviously crypto is had a more violent sell-off than some of the other asset classes, and I'm interested to understand how that's affecting your business or your investing activity and how you're planning to navigate these markets. Jason, maybe start with you.
Yeah, so we do public and private investments. I think on the private side, from the APAC founder side, especially from the China region, the macro headwind really hasn't affected the potential large influx of potential Web2 founders coming into the space. I think for those guys, they're driven out of Web2 for a whole host of factors, ranging from their comp package tanking because their stocks in the gutter, to maybe their Web2 startup wouldn't be easily backed by the Web2 funds in China. But Web3 is sort of this really interesting alternative for them. So the quality and number of founders actually improved this year. And on the private side, I think we are going to probably keep doing those investments even at faster clip than before. On the public side, I think it's been we're going to be more cautious, holding a bit more cash, large cap data, and in terms of the small cap theme that we set ourselves up to do initially, I think we're really going to wait until the macro environment stabilizes.
And Gleb, you run obviously one of the biggest exchanges in the world, and you probably see a lot of activity. How has that affected your business and what you guys are doing?
Yeah, so right now we see different interesting trends, in Asia. Of course, we're in the middle of the bear market, right? And it's affecting the industry but overall, we at Binance, we're okay with the bear market. We think that within bear market, always the strongest projects will survive. We saw that during previous bear market, right? And we think that Asia will definitely be one of the key drivers of the next bull run when it will start, right? We see that there's huge population in some countries. Traditional financial system is not so strong. So I think it opens an opportunity for crypto to be adopted there. So for example, like Sri Lanka, right? So financial system collapsed there. And right now, of course, there is huge instability in the world, right? With the economy, with the politics. But actually, this instability is really driving crypto adoption. Yeah, let's see, just have a look at Turkey, right? Huge inflation, and everyone is in crypto there.
Matt, you are based in China, and I guess the world's sort of watching China, right? And tell us a little bit about what your outlook is and what you guys are doing.
Sure. So I'm more based on a plane these days, to be honest. The last three places that I was New York, and before that Dubai and Cairo. But at any rate, look, number one, crypto, we should all know by now that it's fundamentally a risk-on asset. We have an inflationary environment, we have things going on with the pound, et cetera, et cetera. So look, it's a risk-on asset. Number two, we're starting to mature as an asset class. So early on in our journey, 2012, et cetera, crypto was mostly about endogenous factors. That is to say, what happened with Bitcoin prices at that time was mostly about Bitcoin itself. But we're maturing as an asset class. It's about exogenous factors now. So crypto is increasingly correlated to macro events. this is just kind of a natural progression that will continue to be more and more true, and it's about maturation. But I look at it like this. I fundamentally believe that bear markets are where you make your money, and bull markets are where you find out how much money you make. So I tend to be very counter-cyclical, and I get really tight when I see people, buying yachts, and they're very happy, and I get very cranky and stingy. And then in bear markets, that's where we get much more aggressive. So to me, this is like a perfect time. The LARPers are gone, and the true builders are here, and valuations are reasonable, and so we are just absolutely open for business.
Yep, can't agree more. And what about at Hash? You're one of the key players in Asia, right? And you guys have been in the space for a long, long time. You've seen many cycles, albeit not every cycle is the same, and particularly this one, I guess we have a bit of sort of this inflation issue. What are you guys doing?
So from last year, we're not just only the crypto investor, but also now we set up the trading team inside, and also venture builder subsidiary, and recently we built the HOR, which is Hash Open Research. We hired the Secretary Minister of Korean Government Treasury. So we are talking with various players in government and FSC, which is the SEC of Korea. So this bear market is the perfect timing to prepare the next trend. So, and also from government perspective, they have to make a foundation for next crypto ecosystem. So we are closely talking with them to make the right policy and regulation. I think this bear market is perfect timing, and Korea as well. I think the Web2 investment is quite flourished, but this bear market is not like a last bear market in 2018 because whole macro is corrupting now. That means I think a huge opportunity to Web3 because even Web2 founder has a motivation to move from traditional market to Web3 and find out the new opportunity. So I think just for Hashed, we will utilize the opportunity to make more bringing Web2 smart founders to come here, and it's already from last year the difference from 2018 was not many scam projects. Last year I saw so many good qualified founders came in, especially many game publisher, AAA studio, tech giants. They're all coming into crypto and making a very legit project. So I think we'll see more opportunity from this year, next year.
Great. That's interesting, the point that you brought about these tech giants coming into the space. Obviously we're seeing, Korea has a lot of IP, right? And I can't remember a time when Korean IP has sort of proliferated so globally, right? So I think we can sort of maybe spend a few minutes sort of talking about what's going on in the world of gaming and metaverse and music and so on, right? Because that's obviously been a huge area where venture capital has gone into. And we're curious to hear, maybe this time we start from Ryan in terms of, what are you seeing out of Korea and how you guys are supporting the growth of the ecosystem?
Yeah, so in Korea, especially in our venture builder, we are mostly focusing on the gaming and metaverse and K-pop group. The funny thing is we are making a decentralized K-pop group among our project in venture builder. If we introduce our project, most of the foreign investors are extremely interested in our K-pop group because this is a new concept. You got many guys like BTS, but nobody still see the decentralized BTS. What the decentralized BTS mean? So many decision making is happening to make the great K-pop group. Fans cannot participate into that journey. So now we are we already made the application and selling the NFT photo card to fans. Fans can spend fans can get points whenever they bought a photo card. Then they have to spend the points to vote every single very important decision making. So this kind of experiment is like interesting to from the traditional entertainment company as well, like Hype, was the entertainment company from of BTS, SM, and any other entertainment company want to copy and learn about how we can go through this business. So I think this will be just starting point, and any other like entertainment company and contents will join to this kind of experiments.
Got it. And maybe you guys have got people in all the local markets. Are you guys sort of seeing the same level of interest and engagement in those places? And how are you guys attacking the space?
So, I mean, I think it really is something that is very nuanced on a market-to-market basis. And so we talked about K-pop in South Korea, and for example, NFTs are huge in Thailand. I think you really have to look at each separate market. You can't really, although we're here to talk about the Asian crypto landscape today, I think it's enormously important to understand that there's massive variation from one country to the other. The regulatory challenges are different. The adoption, speed is different. Very specific types of things that people are interested in are different. So I think it's really important to always keep that in mind. It's something I would definitely want to emphasize.
And Glenn, do you have anything to add to that? You run sort of Binance Asia, and you guys also have a pretty lively sort of NFT market.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that markets within Asia are very, very different. Like you can't really like compare like India like with South Korea, right, and like Philippines. So in some markets, yeah, in the Philippines, GameFi is huge. In other markets, there can be like other trends. Overall, in terms of NFT, I think there is some kind of like misconception about NFT, right? People think that it's some kind of like picture on the blockchain, right? But NFT overall has like great technology behind it. So you can do a lot of things with NFT, and this is what we also develop in Binance, right? We have this, some kind of soul-bound token. So if you like pass the rights in Binance, so you can mint it. And I think that this kind of of application of NFTs has a huge huge potential. And overall, yeah, in Asia, I think the major challenge is of course regulation. In some countries such as India, Indonesia, you see like tax per transaction, and it is affecting the industry locally in a bad way. In some other countries, they have, regulators have other concerns. So I think that it's our like job as industry players to educate regulators more and to help them to understand how it's better to shape crypto regulation in order to protect users, but at the same time in order to give an opportunity to industry to grow.
Jason, you were one of the earliest investors into STEPN, which obviously has generated a lot of interest earlier this year, and brought a lot of new people into Web3 and the world of sort of play to earn or move to earn, right? What is your perspective on that? Is play to earn or move to earn alive and kicking, or I think you work very closely with the founders, so we're curious to get your perspective.
I thought you would never bring it up because I get nervous sometimes when people bring it up. Some of them bought shoes very expensively at the top, and some of my friends included. So usually I apologize profusely and try to divert the conversation away. I think something we've learned is that the user profile, when you introduce an earning mechanics, gets altered meaningfully. And to the extent that whether it's an entertainment product or just a usual application, uses an inflationary token as a user acquisition mechanism, the ultimate question becomes, where is that cash flow on the other hand that balances out the inflation? And there are certain mechanics that can be implemented to create long-term, short-term maturity mismatches that you're printing a token. to sort of artificially inflate the value. But ultimately, the cash flow has to match, what goes up. So we sort of put ourselves on an S curve of growth, and I think we reached the ceiling of the industry of DAU very, very quickly. And then we're sort of trying to drive industry growth in terms of, okay, well, we need to onboard more users, and how do they actually get the on and off ramp? And the industry is still a little too early for us to sort of really take it away like we would potentially in Web 2. And I think going forward, in terms of the play to earn or move to earn, or even using token as incentives, what I see is potentially more careful and constrained attempt in maybe you're not earning, but you're like trying to make your initial investment back, such that the user profile isn't as altered as much. I think there will be a lot more experimentation in token mechanics to force or compel continuous contribution to the ecosystem. Or I think there's going to be a lot more experimentation with game types that won't be as one-dimensional or won't be as straightforward and grindy. And all of those things we see experiments from all the other game studios in the region. Hopefully will push the industry forward in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, I mean, what about people's views on stepping out? I think it's obviously been an interesting sort of evolution, right, to what we saw with X Infinity last year, and I think sort of the Steppen team introduced a lot of interesting sort of token things, token economics, and took that experiment the next stage further. I think we're all still trying to figure out, how to make the model more sustainable, and but I think all of these experiments sort of, eventually drive progress, right? Let's take a step back and switch gears somewhat and talk about DeFi, which I think has also sort of struggled somewhat over the last year or two. Matt, you're a pretty prolific DeFi investor, and I just wanted to get your perspective in terms of what you're seeing, whether you're seeing any new innovation in DeFi that is interesting and you guys are spending time on.
Sure, so putting aside macro factors, I think the primary issue with DeFi over the course of the last year plus is that we've gotten a little bit ahead of our skis in terms of having functionality relative to liquidity. So basically what I mean is we have a lot of increasingly specific, very highly engineered functionality that has been built out, and it very much outstrips the retail and institutional liquidity that is available to support that functionality, especially if we take away the short-term yield farming, et cetera, et cetera. So I think really we need, really the number one thing we need in DeFi is onboarding liquidity to support all of that functionality. Institutional and again, retail. Retail continues to be an issue because fundamentally we have to be more mainstream friendly. I frequently like to think of my mom and my sisters as an example because they're very smart people that are not highly technical. You're never going to if I explain, okay, so you have a private key and then you got to potentially protect against hackers and things like that, they're never going to use this stuff. So we really need to start thinking about what does realistic mainstream adoption actually look like, and we need to start thinking about regulated compliant context, how are we going to onboard institutional liquidity? Because we've already built out functionality that far outstrips all of that liquidity. So I think that's the primary thing that I would keep in mind in assessing the DeFi landscape.
All right, any thoughts on DeFi and how do you see DeFi verticals sort of shaping out over the next year or two?
Yeah, so I think DeFi was a very interesting experiment, but at the same time there was so many exploit and log pool happened. So I think first of all, as an anonymous characteristic is quite tricky point because I think regulators think this is kind of so much black money or money laundering is happening on DeFi. So now after this corruption, the huge difference between before and after, as regulator is seriously thinking of this industry, especially DeFi is one of the key industry they have to touch on. So maybe next era, I think DeFi have to be, I think they working with the regulator first, and like Mina said, I think that for Massa the technical points should be very easy. Like normal user cannot use it without any wallet, so maybe like centralized entity should be needed to figure out, provide a better user experience. Also, if the accident happen, they have to figure out or recover the user's money, right? So I think the kind of things have to be complemented.
And speaking of regulations, obviously the U.S. Treasury earlier on this year, or a few months ago, also went after Tornado Cash, right? And I know the industry has had pretty polarized view about that and whether there was regulatory overreach on the part of the U.S. Treasury. We'll be curious to get your views on that. Maybe we'll start off with Matt, since you're American and you've
Sure. So I think first and foremost, with respect to Tornado Cash, I mean, I really feel like this is like a rehash of stuff that we did a generation ago, which maybe is just dating myself a little bit. Probably is the number one thing I'm doing right now. But look, we went through this whole discussion a generation ago about encryption, and at that time, certain types of encryption, even the code, was illegal, and we had big court fights about that, and eventually it was ruled that that you couldn't just say that the algorithm for the encryption was illegal. We already did this a generation ago, so this is really reminiscent of that to me. And I guess my starting point, and you probably have a pretty hard time convincing me to move off this starting point. My starting point is that the code should be okay. I don't think you should be able to say, get that code off GitHub or whatever. And then, the application of Tornado Cash code, that's where it definitely gets much more complicated. But I'm not super sympathetic to the idea that you can outlaw something, that you should be able to outlaw Tornado Cash because it does have a higher percentage of non-compliant uses. I'm not super sympathetic to that, I guess, in general, is the additional thing that I would say.
Yeah. I'm glad, honestly, you guys have a pretty global business, right? And you talk to a lot of regulators in the different parts of the world and try to, shape regulations as well, I guess. What is your perspective in terms of, where the regulators are, who's most progressive, and what are some of the policies that you're seeing coming out of places like Dubai, for instance, where, Binance has also started to build a presence?
So, you see pretty, loyal crypto framework in Dubai, so you have like pretty big hub there. You also see that, European regulators, they quite proactive in terms of regulation, right? So that would be like MiCA. In Asia, I would say that, regulation is very fragmented, right? Each regulator, like in APAC, they have their own views, like how to protect users and what should be done. And this is what I told before. I think we need to do more integration. So for example, right now we also collaborate with a number of regulators. For example, in Philippines, in order to we are making workshops. We explain how crypto is working, and provide some insights into the industry. Yeah, in terms of Tornado Cash and those privacy points, I think there will always be some kind of demand on privacy, right? And I think there will be more regulation in the industry, and the more regulation there will be, the more demand on privacy will be. But again, we need to explain to regulators how it is working, right? It's open source that anyone actually can make a fork or try to make some kind of privacy point, right? And that's more the question whether it should be banned, and if people have have rights to to be private, in Web3 space. But,
Great. Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about sort of gaming, right? We've talked a little bit about DeFi, and you guys are sort of all sort of actively investing out of your funds on very early stage opportunities as well, right? So I'm curious to also pick your brain in terms of understanding what are some of the areas, the newer areas, right? That new use cases that you're excited about. For me personally, I think one of the areas that I've been keeping very close tabs on is the entire sports space, because there's obviously a massive fan base out there, and the industry has obviously been around for a long time, but hasn't really evolved and become digitalized, right? And we're starting to see some excitement there over what Chili's is doing, for instance, and So Rare. And one of the interesting projects that we have personally invested in is this project called Fan Control Sports, which is building this whole alternative, sports league. One of the first places they're tackling is American football. So they're playing this. They have physical players that are playing this alternative fantasy sports league in a real life stadium, but everything about it is different from the NFL, right? And they give control to their users. The users decide which players to pick, who goes in the lineup. They decide on the strategy on game day itself, right? So really engaging users, and I'm pretty excited about sports space in general, but would be keen to hear what other areas you guys are excited about. Jason or Ryan, anybody wants to take that first?
I go?
So I think fashion industry is quite interesting because I think PFP is also just fashion. If you think about fashion too, the reason why they are caring about fashion is that they want to express, I'm not like you, or I'm flexing, stuff like that. And PFP is exactly the same as the fashion characteristic. So the reason why people are buying like EOIC and CryptoPunk is one of the reasons they want to involve into a community. At the same time, they want to show off and flexing. I have tons of money, stuff like that. But if you come close to the fashion, I think the demand of the buying the PFP can move to fashion industry if metaverses flourish. So far, most of the metaverse don't have a traffic much yet, but the fashion can drive the traffic of the metaverse. And if that converge with a game characteristic, then the market will be huge. So we're looking for the good fashion. First of all, not just technology, but also if they can make a new trend or with a very prominent architecture, we're very interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously we're seeing the luxury brands coming into space, right? Tiffany with their CryptoPunks kind of necklace, and Gucci with their NFTs, and Dolce & Gabbana with the same thing. So certainly an area to keep an eye on. What about you, Matt? Anything interesting that you're seeing?
So first of all, I love Ryan's comment about NFTs as flexing. Here's how I think about metaverse and a lot of related concepts. Number one, we are spending more and more of our time in the digital realm every day. Number two, human behavior is fundamentally not going to change. So what that means is that the full range of human behaviors that we see in the analog world are going to manifest themselves in the digital world. Now, you can't drive a Lamborghini. Well, I mean, you could have your digital Lamborghini, but the point is we have all kinds of ways that we're very familiar with of flexing in meat space in the analog world. Those are going to be replicated in the digital world, and one way that we're already seeing that is through
games that have had relative success, big audiences that are now sort of starting to inject some crypto elements into the games. So I'm hopeful that that's coming. The two games as well that I'm personally sort of were invested in, but that I'm excited about that's also going to come. One of them is called Metalcore. It's kind of like a shooter game with mechs and all that sort of stuff. And the other one is called Shrapnel. That's a first-person shooter, so I can't wait for those to come. Jason, what about yourself? Are you seeing any new verticals that are interesting to you?
Yeah, I think echoing Ryan's point and Matthew's point, I really look forward to like consumer brands or consumer experiences that use Web3 as like an enhancing module to do better. So like the girl band example, really hot girls dancing on stage, but you have this app that is sort of developed by the girl band, and you can really sort of live sign transactions to satisfy some purposes. Or if it's a really strong luxury consumer company with this like, it's like flexing a status, but it's like a membership token, and then you get access to all these hot parties, really exclusive events, and at the sign-in, you sign a transaction to prove that you have access. And Web3 is there to support, these ownership of access effectively. I think there's scope for a lot of commoditized Web2 applications to really add Web3 user acquisition features to accelerate their own growth as well as get a leg up versus competition. For example, why can't somebody fork Chrome or Brave and build a browser type feature where if you're just browsing with a really good browser, actually get paid to browse a website with a mobile native wallet as well as an NFT marketplace built in. Somebody's already building that, and we funded that, unannounced yet. And then lastly, I think to support all of it, there probably needs to be a mobile native two-factor security module that makes this sort of mobile experience way more seamless. And we are actively searching for business to invest in that area.
Great, thanks for sharing that. We have about 1 minute left. In the audience, I think we have a bunch of entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs that are here to sort of listen to you guys. And obviously we're living through crypto winter at the moment, and who knows, how long it takes before things start to bottom out. If you had to give one piece of advice, to an entrepreneur today that's coming into Web3, looking to build, looking to raise capital, what would that be? Ryan, you want to start?
Okay. Yeah, it'll be a very tough time, but I think people know people knows people's intention truly. So I think we met so many people at the same time, but if you're real, we can find you. So please keep developing and please come trashed.
The advice is called
Maddie?
Find super fans. Most projects will never have even 2 or 3 people that absolutely love and need the product. If you can make a product that 2 or 3 people absolutely fucking love, excuse my language, and need, then you can get from 2 or 3 to 10 to 50 to 1,000. Most projects fail because they never even get to 2 or 3. That's the number one thing that I would say.
My advice would be to focus on user growth, because a lot of projects in Web3, they think about like token, how to get those listed on Binance or other exchanges. But I think first of all, you guys need to focus on how to get users, how to increase user base. So that should be like key priority.
If you're iterating and growing your KPI, get yourself to 30-month runway. I think the macro will be pretty vicious the next 24 months.
Well, thank you all. I've had a lot of fun. I'm sure the audience has as well, and really appreciate your insights and views. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to our moderator, Kelvin.